What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be checking out MSTR and Bitcoin today. So kind of in the same narrative that we have been in since we were practically back here, just absolutely bleeding out. We got pretty bearish around this time over here after this initial drop, and it's kind of just been playing out that way. We got bearish somewhere in this zone over here, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the exact timing. I would have to look through all the videos, and honestly, I'm not going to do that. But it was somewhere in this zone, from what I remember. We're somewhere in there. We went sideways, had a nice little boost up, and then I was saying we could flip bullish if we actually get a close and hold above the structure. We failed to do that, and then it was really time to get bearish again, or think of at least some sideways chop, and from there on we've kind of fallen off a cliff. But I mean, imagine if you were able to, let's say your average cost was $350 and you were able to avoid some of this drop. Let's say you were able to avoid potentially a 30-35% drop. Even if you bought in again and you were able to avoid some of the drop, it helps bring down your average cost and, keep your portfolio from bleeding. But it looks like the same narrative is going to continue to play out for now. The last video that I made, Bitcoin was at 103.8, so it really hasn't dropped much. So if you look at Bitcoin, it was at 103.8. That's a very insignificant drop, right? Not even 1%. So we were saying if we kind of chop sideways or maybe see a little bit of downside, of course, if we see major downside, then it's going to bring MSTR down with it. And it looks like that's exactly what happened. So actually, let me go on the daily chart and show you. I looked at the last video that I made really quick to get a reference point, and we were here at 255. So Bitcoin has dropped 1% from that time, and MSTR actually dropped the total of 14%, and now we're currently down 9%. And Bitcoin has dropped 1%. Like, I don't know if you guys don't find that alarming or not, but I mean, it has to be, it's got to say something, And then it kind of just ties back to what we were speaking of the prior time, where we're like, hey man, this is starting to look very similar to 2021. So I'll do it again and I'll pull it because I think it's relevant. And I think it's not smart to ignore it. I'm not saying it has to play out because things obviously change. How do you not say that that's identical? Coming from this over here, how do you not say that that's very spot on? I mean, we're mirroring exactly what we have here in 2021. How do we deny this? I just don't get it. Depending on how you place it, of course, doesn't have to be exact, but off by a candle or two, how do you not, you can't deny that this is, spot on right now. So if this were to play out exactly the same, then that means we chop sideways, maybe get a little bit of a push back to the zone before the final fall off. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not saying that it's going to happen that way. I don't want to be super bearish or whatever. I'm just telling you what I see. And you guys can take it however you want. If you dislike it, you can unsubscribe. I'm just here to tell you what I see on the charts. If you don't like it, then you can go to the next YouTube channel that's going to tell you that this is going to 10,000 by next week. But you're not going to hear that from me. Right now, I do think the next level, and we had a major one here at this point over here, where I was saying if we break and hold underneath this structure, which we did, we had a little moment where we had a rally, but I said if we break and hold underneath this structure and hold the retest, then we're going to most likely fall to this next structure. I was saying that for weeks. I feel like I've been saying it forever now at this point. We're back at the same thing right now. So we have both of these levels. So I'm going to use the final level as kind of that point, because we could technically do it here. Like I could technically delete this and say, okay, the same thing applies here. We break and hold the retest, which looks like we're about to do. Then we could fall to this next structure at 183. But I'm going to use this one instead to be a little more cautious, I guess. To kind of help increase the odds of it actually occurring. If we get a close underneath here in this zone, we get our first close, just like we did over here. Now, then we get the retest, which we're currently doing, and we hold that retest. Then I think our odds are going to really increase of us falling down to about 185, this next structure, which would be this key level of resistance that we saw before this next breakout on MSTR. I don't want to be the guy to say it, but that's just what I see. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But if we were to break that structure, hold it, then that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, to the bullish side, if Bitcoin absolutely starts to rip and MSTR actually decides to tag along and run upward with it, we have to break this structure here at 258. You want to do the same thing in the opposite direction. Break and close, retest, hold that retest, and then we can start talking about moving to this next structure. And the reason we were able to spot this one was pretty much just because I always say it, the clean traffic. So we had 2 points where I was talking about the clean traffic, and that was here. But this was a really smaller level. I mean, from 355 to only 325. So it's not a major drop, but this one was pretty significant. The clean traffic from 309, 310 down to 257. That's a pretty significant drop, and we ended up getting that. And I'm telling you again that we could potentially get it again. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Something to be cautious of and be aware that if we do exactly what we were just talking about, that we could see that next structure, which would be another significant drop of around 15 to 16%. And for short-term traders, I'm not telling you to do this by any means, but if you take a look at these inverse ETFs, they've been actually ripping since July 14th. It's actually been tearing it up. You can see it's had 2 structures right here, or 2 trend lines. One not so steep one, and then it's taken pretty much starting to get more aggressive. The move is starting to get really aggressive to the upside. I don't really like shorting the market. I've done it in the past, a few years ago, and I've had success, but I typically don't like to do it. But yeah, I mean, if you see something like this, this could potentially trigger an opportunity if you are some kind of trader, swing trader. I'm just a long-term investor at this point. You're talking about a 2x move on this. That's a 32% drop, where you can pretty much do exactly what we did here and capture that move from this structure to this structure. Now we've officially gotten our cross that we were talking about for a couple weeks now, with the 20 breaking back underneath the 50. Incredibly bearish, very bearish sign. The last time that we've seen that was over here in the last time where MSTR actually fell off the cliff was when it had this 20 breaking underneath the 50 on the weekly. That was this 2021 cycle leading into the 2022 bear. And now we're seeing the crossover again, and this move looks very, very similar. And last time it came for a retest of the 20 and then continued to bleed out off of this move. So I'm going to mirror this as well, just to kind of get an idea of like what would that look like if we did the exact same thing, if we were to mirror this move coming up, remember, these things don't even, this does not have to happen. I'm just doing theoretical ideas. But if this were to, okay, it's from the top. Hold on, let me adjust that. If we were to line it up, and it's been pretty spot on for now. But I guess if we swing it over here to the side and line it up, we could potentially, if we did the exact same thing, we could chop sideways, maybe run into this 20 SMA. So maybe it would be a little bit more like, I guess something, I don't know, whatever, doesn't really matter. And this 20 moving average, the blue one, would be coming down. We retest, and then that's where we start to fall off of that retest. That might be the next major move. That's another possibility. If we were to actually hold the structure that we were speaking of. So if we hold the structure, like I said, and we push up, maybe that's where we find that resistance off of the 20 moving average on the weekly, and then we bleed from there. On our 8-week moving average, we've been trending to the downside, as you can see here. We'll see if we come back for a retest. And on the daily, you can see we did talk about at some point, maybe we come back and actually make contact with the 8-day moving average. And we did come back for that retest, and we continue to push down lower, just like we have done multiple times already. Looks like that's kind of just been the trend. We use this 8-week moving average kind of as like a short-term rally kind of indicator, and it looks like we could be potentially getting that next move after touching the 8-day. RSI here on the weekly on MSTR, we're pushing towards oversold territory. We're sitting at 32. Oversold completely is at 30. And on the daily, we're about to hit that as well. We're sitting at around 31, 32 or so. We are sitting at a floor right now, but it looks like we might end up breaking that and pushing down to lower structures. On the weekly MACD, just absolutely bearish in every way possible. There's really not much to talk about. We actually are almost as low. Well, let's see. I'm going to line up these bear markets over here. The lowest points that we've seen, which was -6.5. Oh yeah, we're way past that. Okay, so yeah, we're approaching the lowest or weakest that we've ever seen, MSTR. So the weakest that we've seen was this drop off here in March at -24.4. We're currently sitting at -21.5. And like I said, if we do break this structure, we could be seeing a spike lower, which I would imagine we would break this 24 mark here on the MACD. Over to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's kind of just trending downward right now, especially when you take a look here at the daily. It's a pretty clean trend that you can see. Hopefully we can break that and start to see a little bit of upside, but you can see that trend nice and established there. Clean, easy move, just creating lower highs, lower lows. If we break the structure at 98, we could potentially fall to this next structure at 93. But ideally, what we want to see is a chop, break, retest, and start to see levels higher. That's what we're ideally looking for here on Bitcoin. And if we were to overlay, we're going to overlay Bitcoin and MSTR and kind of get an idea of this most recent move. You can see MSTR is this lighter blue here. You can see how it's really deviating from Bitcoin in this most recent month or so, month and a half. You can see it's just falling off a cliff, and Bitcoin's falling, but not as fast of a rate as MSTR is. In that same period, from this October 6th point, Bitcoin dropped a total of 21% and is currently down 18%. From October 6th, this point here, MSTR dropped 40% and is currently down 36%. Just for a little comparison there. We'll see if the trend continues or if we can actually start to see some upside here. Touch the key support level, and got a little bit of rejection to the upside, which is nice. We'll see if it holds from here. On the weekly, we touched that 50-week moving average. Nice little bounce right there. We'll see. We have 5 days and 3 hours left. We want to see a nice bounce again, holding that structure using this 50 as a floor on the weekly. And on a daily, we want to break back above this 20, 50, and 200, or the 20, 200, then the 50. But we are getting rejection off of the 20 right here. As you can see, we pushed up, found rejection and confluence with this structure above it. And tether dominance has been absolutely ripping to the upside. It's holding the structure up here, which is what we did not want to see. We are still holding our downward sloping trend line right there. It's still a nice trend. We're hoping for this candle to turn into a wick and then the body to fall back down underneath this key structure of support. But right now on the daily, it's looking very bullish. As you can see, we broke above, bounced, and now it's trying to break to the upside. But we want to see this downward sloping trend line, hold it back underneath here, at least underneath 5.4 or lower, and then fall off. If we can see a nice move like that, if we can see a nice move off of this structure here down to this horizontal level of support, then we're more than likely going to get a nice move on Bitcoin. So that's kind of what we're looking for and hoping for. On the SMAs, we have the 200 week well above us. We almost made it up to it, fell a little bit short. And we have the 50 and the 20 curling to the upside, which is not a good sign. And on the daily, what is also not the best sign is that we've been using the 20-day as pretty much like a short-term swing indicator to the upside. You can see that. So we want to lose the 20 and fall down to the 50, eventually losing the 200 as well. And then we can start to see some downside. Hopefully, maybe we create like a nice head and shoulders, and then we fall down further. So you can see we have a left shoulder here. Maybe we're creating a head. If we kind of go down, retest this level, and then fall down, then that could be that inverse head and shoulders, which would then mean that we see some upside on Bitcoin. So that's what we're hoping and looking for on tether dominance. Overall, though, I don't think it's anything too crazy because Bitcoin at the end of the day is still sitting at 102.5. So we'll see if we get a nice rally. And like I said prior, the Fed is apparently going to turn off the money print or stop quantitative tightening, and then eventually turn on the money printers, going into 2026 potentially. So that could bring the excitement and the flow of capital into crypto related assets and just stocks in general. That could potentially lead to some kind of upside on Bitcoin. So we're kind of in this point where, are we still in the 4-year cycles, or are we kind of transitioning out of this, or are the 4-year cycles still intact, but it's just going to be like a longer drawn out cycle because of what the Fed has been doing. So we'll keep an eye out for everything. I'll keep you guys up to date. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.